What happens when power meets innocence? And a tiny voice speaks the truth no one else dares to say. Tonight's story will take you inside a luxurious billionaire dinner in the heart of the USA, where wealth, pride, and status rule the table. But everything changes in a single moment. When a young maid is humiliated in front of everyone, and no one steps in, no one except a toddler. A moment so unexpected, so powerful, that it leaves an entire room speechless and changes everything forever. If you love emotional, powerful stories with deep life lessons, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing content. Now let's get started. The grand dining hall of the Beverly Hills mansion glowed under towering crystal chandeliers, their golden light reflecting off polished marble floors. Wealthy guests sat around a long table, dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits, sipping vintage wine and exchanging quiet laughter. At the center sat Claire, the billionaire's fiancée, radiating confidence and superiority as she observed everything around her with a critical eye. Lily, a young maid barely in her 20s, moved carefully between the guests, her hands trembling slightly as she served dishes. This job meant everything to her. She couldn't afford a mistake. As she reached Claire's seat, her hand slipped just enough for a small drop of soup to land near the edge of Claire's plate. The reaction was immediate. Claire's expression twisted in disgust as she leaned back sharply. "Are you serious?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the room like glass. Conversation stopped instantly. "Did they not train you people at all? Or is this what passes for service now?" she added loud enough for every guest to hear. Lily froze, her face draining of color. I'm so sorry, ma'am," she stammered quickly, reaching for a napkin, her hands shaking even more. A few guests exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one spoke. The tension grew heavy, pressing down on the room. Claire let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Some people simply don't belong in places like this," she said, brushing off her dress as if the small spill had ruined everything. Lily lowered her eyes, swallowing her embarrassment, wishing she could disappear. And just as silence settled again, a small chair scraped against the floor. The soft scraping of the chair drew every eye in the room. Little Ethan, no more than 3 years old, stood unsteadily on his seat, his tiny hands clenched at his sides. His wide eyes moved from Claire to Lily, his small face filled with confusion and quiet determination. "Don't be mean," he said, his voice innocent but firm, cutting through the heavy silence. A ripple of shock passed through the guests. Claire blinked clearly, unprepared to be challenged, especially not by a child. She forced a tight smile. "Sweetheart." "Sit down," she said gently, though the strain in her voice was obvious. But Ethan didn't move instead. He carefully climbed down from his chair, his small shoes tapping softly against the marble floor. As he walked toward Lily, she stood frozen, unsure of what to do, her eyes still lowered. Ethan reached out and tugged lightly at her hand. "You're nice," he said, looking up at her with complete sincerity. "You helped me when I fell earlier." Lily's breath caught her eyes filled with tears. But this time they weren't from shame. They were from something warmer, something unexpected. Around the table, guests shifted, their expressions softening. At the head of the table, Daniel, the billionaire, had been watching everything in silence. Slowly, he set down his glass and stood. The faint sound echoed in the stillness, drawing attention instantly. His gaze moved from his son to Claire, then to Lily. "Kindness," he said calmly, "is something money can't buy." His voice was steady, but it carried authority. "And it's the one thing I expect in this house." Claire's composure faltered, her face paling under the weight of his words. No one spoke in that moment. The power in the room shifted completely, and it was the smallest person who had changed it all.